Hey guys, it's Paradise, and if you're looking for an awesome new open-world action game to put on your radar, then Crimson Desert is definitely one that you should have some time stamped out for. It's a mix of some awesome games like Zelda, The Witcher, and takes inspiration with mechanics from things like Assassin's Creed, GTA, and more. So in today's video, we're going to go over the essential things that you need to know about the game, from the current release information to its gameplay mechanics. We were lucky enough to actually get some hands-on time and play the game, so we'll also sprinkle in some of our own experiences with this game to hopefully give you a better idea of what to expect as we get closer to launch. So let's not waste any time, and you can let us know what you're thinking of the game and what your hopes are for it down below. And it looks like a lot of people are confused about exactly what the vision for Crimson Desert is, as it looks like a meld of all of these different games. Well, Crimson Desert is an open-world action RPG made by Pearl Abyss. It's set in a gritty fantasy setting where players will have to survive in a harsh world that's meant to be filled with mystery and wonder. As we mentioned, the game is being made by Pearl Abyss, which might be a name that you're very familiar with or may have not heard of at all. So here's a little background to this studio. Pearl Abyss are a Korean studio, probably best known for making the MMO Black Desert Online. If you haven't heard of them before, you've probably seen the adverts. The game is quite popular for its awesome and flashy combat system that has a variety of different classes, and if you've ever seen those combat showcase videos for these classes, you can see that the studio has gone crazy with the combat aspect of it, which is important as the combat in Crimson Desert from our experience was also insanely awesome. Crimson Desert is their attempt to breach into the Western console market, similar to how Shift Up is mostly known for mobile games like Nikki, but recently released Stellar Blade. Another example would be the upcoming Phantom Blade Zero from S-Game. So there are a few different studios trying to break into our Western market. Now, originally, this was supposed to be a prequel to Black Desert, but it's grown into something entirely on its own. We're talking about a massive open-world game with intense combat and an epic story. In the early stages of development, the devs did mention that the game would be a blend of single-player and multiplayer experiences, but there hasn't been any mention of the multiplayer aspect in quite a while. It was originally meant to be an MMO, but transitioned into a single-player game that was going to maintain some multiplayer elements. But as mentioned previously, there is very little detail on what the multiplayer elements will be. The game is set to be released for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC, but doesn't currently have a release date yet. People were speculating that the game would release in late 2025 or early 2026. However, with GTA 6 on the horizon for fall of 2025, it probably isn't a smart idea to release another open-world game around that time, even if they are widely different. Games moving their release dates away from GTA is a common thing, so we think Pearl Abyss will be taking notes here, as they don't want their game to get drowned out by a massive release like GTA 6. For the story of the game, you'll step into the boots of Macduff, who they may have recently renamed to Cliff. You are a hardened mercenary who's leading a pretty ragtag crew of fighters in a world that's honestly falling apart. The setting is Pywell, a land that's just dripping with war, chaos, and betrayal. And our character Cliff isn't a typical hero, he's got some baggage and he's really trying to survive out there while keeping his crew alive. He's got personal reasons for the things he does, and the story doesn't shy away from showing the complexity of being a leader in this kind of brutal setting. As you journey through Pywell, you'll get tangled up in power struggles, shady factions, and different rulers who are definitely not playing fair. It's meant to be gritty, dark, and packed with moments where you question loyalty, leadership, and what it means to protect those you care about. The combat will be quite intense. Think of up-close and personal action with some seriously cinematic moments mixed in. The studio's also planning to tell an epic story alongside this insane combat, and if you're into deep storytelling, mixed with the thrill of a big open world to explore and experience with epic battles, then Crimson Desert is looking like it ticks a lot of boxes. After having some personal hands-on time with the game, we're really excited to dive in and learn more about it. It's a world that mixes fantasy with a dab of some crazy things that you would see in anime, like teleporting bosses with wave beams. Not only that, but there seems to be a great mix of characters from standard humans to towering ogres and other mythical beings. It really does seem like a perfect backdrop for someone looking to dive into a fantasy adventure with plenty of variety. This variety extends into the game's open world and the activities you can do, and the world of Pywell is looking pretty massive, and we have literally seen this in our gameplay reaction. Think about huge mountains, lush forests, bustling towns, and even ancient ruins. The world isn't just going to be a pretty backdrop though. It has dynamic weather systems, day-night cycles that are actually going to impact gameplay. For example, if you're out in a snowstorm, expect your visibility to drop and your movement to slow down. Or if you're traveling at night, you might run into some dangerous creatures lurking around. Something that we were really hoping for, and after reading back through a bunch of information, it's actually been confirmed that the NPCs will go about their daily lives and routines, and you'll stumble upon random events and encounters that can help or seriously mess up your plans. This is a highlight for Rockstar games with things like Red Dead Redemption and GTA, where you would have random dynamic events that would make the world feel a bit more alive. We've yet to see this play out in actual gameplay, but it is in the plans for the game, so hopefully they can pull it off. But now moving on to the activities, from the trailers we've seen so far, the game is packed with things to do. Here's a few examples that we got to see. There's mercenary contracts, and of course we are a mercenary, so taking on these contracts is a big part of the game. These range from hunting down dangerous creatures to taking out rival mercenary groups and protecting caravans from bandits. Each contract is meant to feel different, and some can lead to longer quest lines with even bigger rewards. You also have the exploration and sort of treasure hunting aspect, and if you're like me, you love wandering off the beaten path and finding that good loot. There's going to be plenty of hidden caves, ruins, and ancient sites waiting to be explored. And yes, of course, the loot is there too, and there's lots of it, with things like powerful weapons to magical artifacts. If you take the time to explore, you're meant to be rewarded. On top of this, you're not just stuck running around on foot, you can also travel on horseback, and from what we've seen, there might be some flying mounts to help you get around. Imagine soaring over a massive battlefield or gliding into a hidden area that you can't reach before, so this is looking pretty cool. But if you're into your crafting stuff, you'll find plenty of resources to gather, whether it's rare herbs, minerals, or animal hides, and you can use these to upgrade your gear or craft new powerful items. And you will definitely need to upgrade those armor pieces, especially for some of the tougher boss fights later on. As you explore though, you will come across different factions, each with their own agendas, so you can align yourself with some of them, which will open up new quests, gear, and influence in the world. But you do want to be careful, because making enemies with the wrong faction can seriously complicate your journey. And then beyond the main storyline that you'll be going on, there's also going to be side quests that will introduce you to the world's lore, various new characters, and there's meant to be moral choices too. Some of these side quests will just be light-hearted and funny, while others might get you deep into the politics of the game and various other dark aspects of Pywell. There's even more than this, because we have seen some wacky things, with Cliff having missions to carry sheep or to just go fishing. But something that is asked a lot about the gameplay is if it will use magic. We know from the early gameplay trailers that Cliff is able to use magic in some form, and the website does say, while you start off as a more grounded mercenary, there's the potential to tap into the arcane world. Whether it's through learning powerful spells, unlocking ancient artifacts, or forming alliances with magical beings, you'll start to gain access to these otherworldly powers. One of the things that sets the fantasy tone right away is the massive variety of these magical creatures that roam the land. We're not talking about things like wolves or bears. This is where the real fantasy kicks in, because you can expect to fight against gigantic dragons, griffins, and other mythical creatures that require some serious strategy to bring down. Some of these creatures will be tied to the lore of Pywell, serving as guardians of ancient ruins or being hunted by factions for their magical properties. Now, we will go a bit more in depth about the actual combat, because playing this was one of our personal highlights after reading a ton of the impressions that came out after Gamescom. It seems like this was the same for a lot of people that got to play it, but just as a caveat, while the combat was super fun, the controls have a massive learning curve if you don't know the button prompts and combo flows. This is how our session was handled. We were thrown in the deep end and just had to figure things out, so it has been a bit hard to convey how the controls and combat feel. But luckily, a Korean channel had recorded a gameplay tutorial which gives us a better insight into how the combat is meant to be, and we didn't even get to see this ourselves, and it really shows off the depth of the combat from kicks to heavy swings and so on, so let's go through it. Do note though, this is an off-screen recording, so the footage is a little lower quality than usual, but it is good stuff. The first weird thing is the fact that sprinting is on the A button, and you have to tap A twice to run in a similar way to GTA. The jump is on the X button, but a cool thing that you can do is press the Y button to kick things. The tutorial shows a variety of different versions of the kick, and you can do things like double kicks or even drop kicks. A kick will send an enemy flying, so it's going to be great for crowd control. You also have your roll on the B button, and this can be perfectly timed, which will give you back some of your stamina. This is very important because your stamina drains super quickly from pretty much every action you do, and you can double tap this to do a sidestep. This is kind of what makes the combat feel a bit like you're playing a Dark Souls game, because you have a heavy and light attack on the shoulder triggers. These attacks both feel very tactile and great to pull off. The heavy attacks are some of the ones where you see all of the particle effects going ham, which we know some people are not sold on, but we personally like them. Both the light and heavy attacks also have combo strings that you need to learn. You also have a shield to block with, and much like your combat roll, you can time this perfectly for extra benefits. You aren't just limited to your sword and shield though, as you'll have a number of different weapons. One of these weapons is the bow, which can be quickly equipped via holding the left trigger. In our demo, we also saw a variety of different ammo types, which was pretty cool. The game also has a weapon wheel and quick access menu for swapping your weapons and using consumables. One of the awesome things about the combat though isn't just that you have access to some great core abilities, but you can also access a wide variety of skills. For example, we've seen a riposte which acts as a quick counter attack, and this will kick your enemies away and send them flying. We've also spoken about your ability to parry already, but here you can see it in action and just how powerful it can be. One of my favorite sword attacks though was the Turning Slash, which was this massive attack that looks similar to the heavy attack, but just does so much more damage. And then we can talk about the WWE moves. This is where the combat starts to feel a bit tricky, as you need to press a combination of both shoulder and multiple face buttons in quick succession. However, the results are pretty awesome when you do it. Next up, we have some examples of the sword attacks that you can do with skills, like the stab and flurry / combo attacks, both of which are great for boss fights. And next there's an attack that we didn't even know existed, but it is insanely awesome, as it's a crowd control move where it's a skill that reflects the sun's light off your sword. It's very simple but very cool. You also have the Force Palm, which is an attack that is used in a lot of the demo footage in the boss fights, and it powers up your fist for a massive attack, and you can also use it while airborne. On top of this, you get access to this slow motion precision focus when you dodge with the bow that makes for some epic shots. However, the real epicness comes from combining all of these things together into doing things like jumping off of enemies into doing flying double drop kicks. And just like in Dragon's Dogma, you can even climb on the bigger monsters to take them down, so we love to see that in here too. There are also a ton more mechanics like being able to swing and glide and more, so it really is adding to the experience. For example, we have seen mechanics borrowed from other games like the parkour and wall climbing that could be straight up lifted from Assassin's Creed or Zelda with the Master Hand. If you are wondering about the weapons though, you will be able to find and loot new ones in the open world. In our demo, we were able to get a brand new sword and shield after defeating the Stag Lord boss, which had better stats on it. It isn't only a sword that you can use though, as you have access to other brutal weapons like swords, axes and spears, and of course your ranged weapons with things like the bow. It was even mentioned on an early website blog that there would be guns and cannons that would fit the settings, so that's going to be really interesting if it's still true. Something that they haven't shown for a while is that your companions will be able to assist you in battle, as you'll be able to combo attacks with them. We don't know exactly how this system will work, but it's super interesting to see that it is included, as it will make your party feel a lot more alive. One of the reasons that the release of Crimson Desert has taken a while is that they're working on a new Black Space engine alongside developing the game. This is because they really wanted to realize their ambition for this title. The Black Space engine is kind of like the secret sauce behind Pearl Abyss's visuals and seamless open worlds. Here's a quick summary of what Pearl Abyss have said about the engine. This engine powers everything from the gritty realism of Crimson Desert to the colorful, vibrant world of DocAV. It's all about that dynamic weather, fluid combat, and character customization that will have you tweaking every little thing. Whether you're in the middle of a massive battle or just vibing in town, they want the Black Space engine to make everything look and feel smooth without breaking a sweat. Now, if you are interested in both Crimson Desert and DocAV, they have said that once the work on Crimson Desert is done, because they're using a shared engine, the work on DocAV will be super quick to complete. But overall, Crimson Desert is looking like a very exciting game. If you're a fan of action-adventure RPGs, then you should definitely have this on your radar. From our own personal experience, we had a ton of fun with it having played it, and we can't wait to play and experience more. We do think that the game does need some polish in different places to make it fully realize its potential. However, with no solid release date yet and the team only wanting to release the game when it is ready, we're excited to see where this one will go. Hopefully they release a good game, but for now we have to be cautious. So what do you think of all of this? Tell us below, and make sure you're subscribed because we have more videos on your favorite games coming very, very soon.